Welcome back to the channel. This is Malone's RC Hobby. And guys, what do I have in store for you today? I got some vintage RC here. I got some Tamiya product. I got two Monster Beetles. I got two Blackfoots. They're all vintage. They are not the re-releases. And so I've had this Monster Beetle and this Blackfoot for 30 plus years. I got these in the late 80s. And I was a kid. I built them with my father, built them with my grandfather. And there was things back then I had to do to keep them alive and keep them from breaking because I didn't have the money to constantly buy new parts. So I learned tips over the years on how to keep them alive and keep them running. And they're still running today. I could take a day off work or after work and take this little guy off the shelf and go for a run, and it's gonna run. So yeah, you're talking 1980s here, and they're still running. So I got this request to pop the tops of these things because I did a montage video early on in my YouTube channel, the RC channel, and I showed the Monster Beetle and the Blackfoot running out here in my lot, and people complimented me on, hey, those cars look like they're running really well. What did you do to them to keep them running like that? And I'm going to show you. So before we do, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll be bringing you RC content like this each and every week. So all right, let's get to it. So the Monster Beetle and the Blackfoot. I took the body off the Blackfoot right here, and I'm going to take the body off the Monster Beetle here. And usually, guys, when I put my when I mount my bodies, I like to put a little bit of a grommet or a washer here, or a plastic washer here, just like you see there, just so you don't damage the body. Because a lot of times those pins, when you have those in there over time, they just start to dig into the body and can kind of damage it. If you want to preserve this, it's always good to get yourself a little rubber grommet. Like I said, this is a little O-ring, and that works just fine. So, but before I move on to show you what I did to improve, where did I get these ideas to improve these cars? In addition, of course, to my father and my grandfather, was RC Car Action magazine. And guys, I have some of these vintage issues here. This is a 1989 issue from April 1989, and I was a kid, and God, I was what, 12 years old, and this was my glory. This was what I could not wait to get the next issue each month. This was our information. This was our internet, and as you can see, it was loaded with the wealth of information, and we just could not wait to get into this magazine. What's nice about RC Car Action magazine, even today, is that they have a pit tip section. So each issue, they always had a pit tip section, and this was great. This was our YouTube, so you had to, improvise sometimes. We didn't have the money to buy parts. My parents didn't have the money to buy parts for these cars every time I broke them, so we had to dig into this issue and learn, and this is what we learned from. So, and a lot of the tips are based off of what you could find in your house in a junk drawer or in an old tool chest or something, or an old coffee can full of screws that you can improvise with to help build these cars or get them back on the road, so to speak. So RC Car Action magazine, great issues. I have some of these, and really cool to reminisce. And also Tower Hobbies catalog. They used to come out every year, and they always showed what was new coming down the pike. I don't know if it was every year or every quarter they used to release these. I used to get them in the mail, and it was always very cool. I used to order stuff through these catalogs, and COD. So I didn't have a credit card back then. So whenever I needed a part, I called them up. They shipped the part, and I paid the UPS driver cash, and then he sent that money to Tower Hobbies or whichever other company I bought a part from. So pretty cool. So a lot of tips I got from there. So right out the gate, what do I do to these cars to make them run better? And let's start off with the Blackfoot here. And I do believe for the Blackfoot, a little more notorious for breaking front end area, simply because, number one, you don't have oil-filled shocks out the box in the kit. And my good friend Mark Bryan from Mark Bryan RC told me that Tamiya is known for the pogo stick shocks, right? So they're not oil-filled. And Blackfoot comes with just black plastic, non-oil-filled shocks. Upgrade to oil-filled shocks right out the gate. Either you go with the Monster Beetle style oil-filled shocks, kind of like what I have back here, or you can find yourself a set of oil-filled shocks. I got better oil-filled shocks from my Monster Beetle here off of eBay, as you can see there, and they're actually aluminum. So just do an eBay search and you'll find oil-filled shocks for the Monster Beetle, and these actually work pretty good. I'm not too bad. Definitely much better than the stock shock. So, but the problem with the Blackfoot is when you don't have oil-filled shocks, number one. Number two, their tire compound out the box is not soft. These are Midnight Pumpkin and Lunchbox tires, the 2.0 size tire. But what's nice is you can stretch them around the 2.2 rim. And I did like that a lot. I like the way these tires perform with a Blackfoot. Blackfoot tires out the box, as everyone knows, is a very hard, plasticky feeling rubber compound. It just doesn't give as well as a Monster Beetle tire or Midnight Pumpkin. So you had a lot of hard bouncing around with the front end of a Blackfoot. And so it was notorious to break. These upper arms, these arms in here, the shock arms here, the upper and lower arms, they just constantly broke. The shocks broke. Where the shock mounts always broke. It's just plastic, so there wasn't a lot of give. There wasn't a good impact with a Blackfoot. So if you have a Blackfoot, the best thing you can do is probably gravitate towards upgrading it to somewhat of a Monster Beetle fashion. Now, what I used to do, and you can see it right here. I'm going to zoom in here for you. See, there's a ferrule I have here. I don't get my light over here. Maybe you guys can see a little bit better. So I have a ferrule here. I'll show you what this ferrule looks like. Just like this. Maybe like a 1/4 inch inside diameter. All I did was, I don't know offhand, I think it's about a 1/4 inch. So what I did was I actually just took the truck to a local hardware store, and I found the tip somewhere online, or I think my father told me about this, was to put a ferrule around here. And what it is it's just a plastic piece that comes off this knuckle that the shock screws into. It's just plastic here. This always broke. Always, always, always. And it just has one screw that goes through and fastens it down, and you do have another brass fitting that's inside the shock here, so the screw can go through. But over time, this broke, and then your shock is dangling, and your truck is all kind of cockeyed. So I put that ferrule on there, and that actually gained some strength on that plastic piece. Now, if you get a ferrule that's slightly bigger and there's a little bit of play, that's okay. You can get some Teflon tape, or even some masking tape, or even some Gorilla tape, or like a duct tape or something. Cut a small strip, and you can wrap that plastic area there, and then put the ferrule over it so it's nice and snug. And then I would get just a longer screw, and I would drill through the knuckle. Don't use the stock screw, because it just screwed into this area here. It just still wasn't strong enough. Take a longer screw, go straight through, and on the other end, I put a nut with a lock washer, and then squeeze this section down to gain some support. That's a great way to save this here without breaking, because this is notorious for breaking. So when you squeeze this here front and back, and look, I didn't even use a Phillips screw. I mean, again, this was something I probably dug into on a coffee can or something, or whatever I could find, I applied there. So I wasn't about being correct. I was just trying to be practical and get my car running again. So that's a great thing to do. So right off the bat, it's just notorious for breaking those arms. So, and then the upper and lower arms here, they always broke as well. And I did remember they had some aftermarket stuff later on that had some fittings on the east side, that were steel or metal, so the holes wouldn't break. But I don't know if I've seen them again. But now Ampro Engineering, if you go to shapeways.com, Ampro Engineering has arms in their nylon, and they're much stronger. You do have to pre-drill them for the screws to go through the holes, but much better arms than the traditional Tamiya arms. And the front bumper area too is also notorious for cracking. You got two screws. You got one here going down and another one going up, and I never understood why they did that. You got two screws meeting each other in the center. why not make one long screw to go through and just add a nut and bolt, a nut and a lock washer rather. So I don't know why they did that. I still have that set up here with 2 screws, but on my Blackfoot over here I changed that. And as you can see, I have a long screw that goes through, and then underneath I have a nut with a lock washer. So take a look at that. Again, not from the Tamiya kit. Again, this was something I just had laying around the house, and as long as you're just trying to drive and you're not, worrying about it being a shelf queen or something, that this is fine. Another area that's notorious for breaking is the rear shock mount areas. So you got these horizontal laying shocks. I picked up aluminum braces here to mount the rear shocks, and you can find these on eBay. I think that's where I found them. The shape of them was not exactly friendly to the car when I got it. I don't know why. It wasn't a bolt-on, ready-to-go sort of scenario. I actually had to grind down part of this to get it to fit right, but this is a good addition to put on the car, because the original arms, we'll go back over to the stock Monster Beetle, I'm sorry, the Blackfoot, and these stock arms, again, they always cracked here and broke. And as you can see here again, it's just one screw that goes through and this cracks. It's just it's a weak point. If you're going to keep the original arm, get again a longer screw that can go all the way through. If you have to drill it through, and put a nut on the back end of this with a washer. So just to kind of preserve this as best you can. But there are plenty of aftermarket arms. This is actually an aftermarket arm, I think, that I picked up for this one, and maybe not as strong as the aluminum one here, but will definitely do the job, I think, a bit better than the stock support brace here. But there's a lot of stuff on the market. Even Ampro Engineering has a whole different setup here. I mean, I think he even has a setup for the rear suspension where the shocks can go vertical as opposed to horizontal. So very, very cool setup there. So that's another area that you got to really look out for. And you should also look into the same thing in the rear area here towards the transmission where the shock mounts. Again, you want to put a screw that can go all the way through with a nut on the end of it, just again to preserve this, because this section right here, if I zoom in here a bit, this section here, that cracks as well. So definitely want to look into doing a setup like you see, just like that. And as far as drivetrain, if you're going to have a driver, a good ready driver to go, I would recommend getting the MIP differential. So I have the MIP in this Monster Beetle and that Blackfoot. A huge improvement to the vehicle. The drivability, you can then go brushless if you want to without having to worry. And your arms, of course, are a lot better. That back here, the dog bones, the stock bones, they just always round it out. So this is a wonderful setup here. They finally got it right. They did have they used to have a Thorpe ball differential that was back in the day as well as an option, but I heard that wasn't even as great either. So I would definitely recommend getting that. I mean, I know it's a bit pricey, maybe 60, 70 bucks something, but it just really improves the drivability of the car, and it can then take a little bit more powerful motor. I still stayed brushed on this, and this is a vintage Speedworks 350 motor. I remember in reading again in RC Car Action magazine or even Tower Hobbies, this was like the recommended motor for the Blackfoot. It was just upgraded enough to not destroy your differential, but gave you decent speed, much more than stock. So it was it was a good happy medium. So it wasn't too ballistic, but at the same time was very workable in these cars. So that was a very good motor. I got 2 of them actually. So I found these on eBay recently because I used to use these. So I got one here, and then I got one over here in the Blackfoot. And then as far as electronics, I'm still using pretty much old school electronics. I did pick up the Hobbywing 1060 ESC for these cars. I just heard it was, really recommended to use it if you're staying in this kind of a fashion. So again, I'm not looking to go crazy with these cars, but this is a perfect ESC. That's a great one to get for Tamiya cars. You guys all know this, I'm sure. But look, I'm still using my Magnum Junior Futaba. These things are like weapons. I mean, you can knock someone with this thing and probably knock them out. It's got that weight to it, that solid feel. So I really enjoy still using the old school transmitters. Even the I even got a kind of an Attack R. I used to have the old school Attack R that was like a silver. This is like a retro, I guess a newer retro model with the twin sticks, you know. But I still like driving them with stuff like this. This is old day stuff, you know. I really like that. The only unfortunate thing is you know, they take 8 AA batteries as opposed to 4 for today's stuff, and it's not 2.4 gigahertz either. But they still work. So that's what I'm running on these cars. I mean, I'm still using the old Tamiya plug. I'm not using any Dean's connectors or anything like that. Still running nickel metal hydride batteries, not a LiPo. So other than that, you know, the shocks are good, the oil-filled shocks are good, and it's just a much smoother car than the stock setup. If you put the MIP diff in, and if you do a couple of those suspension support upgrades from your home or from what you can get at the hardware store, or just buying a couple of the upgrade mounts that you can get online now, I'm good. I know you can go way more than this. There's a lot more you can do, but again, I'm doing some light bashing with these cars. And if you're going with the Blackfoot, you know, definitely think about changing the shocks, tires, just because it'll soften the ride on this car, and just won't be so susceptible to braking the whole front end and such. Because this was just notorious for braking, guys. I mean, you all know this if you're into vintage Tamiya stuff. Tamiya, however you want to call it. But yeah, this is basically what I do with my setup, and nothing crazy. Again, I'm sure if you guys have any other tips you want to add to this, leave it in the comment section below. But this is how I'm running them, and I'm happy because at the end of the day, they're still alive and they're still driving, and that's all that matters to me. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll be bringing you RC content like this each and every week. And vintage stuff is the scene, man. I'm gonna do another video coming out shortly about what these cars are doing on eBay. I have been seeing some ridiculous pricing for vintage untouched Tamiya RCs. It's just quite remarkable what they're going for. I don't know what the spike is, what's happening, but this collector market in this realm is pretty good if you're into the RC scene. So, all right, guys, hope you liked that video. Take care.